So there are 4 stock issues, 5 of you from a great planet. Just kidding. Now we're going to put every argument and debate on one map. The map goes like this. Cause, effect. Look at capitalize that one and not that one. I don't know why. Use it before and after, now and then. I'm going to go with now and future. Present and future. So the arguments of debate fit into this map. The different resolutions of debate fit into this map. And it's where you get normal terms. So when you say the 4 stock issues actually live, 3 of them live in this map. Let's start with stock issue 1 though, because stock issue 1 does not live in this map. Topicality. Topicality is the idea that you did prove the resolution or you did not. So if the resolution says that you should change the United States agriculture policy and or food safety policy, and your opponents came up there and they changed our import restrictions on agriculture from Africa, you might say, my opponent's case is a trade policy, not an agriculture policy. So when you look at the statement, the United States should change its agriculture policy, my opponents haven't proven it. They've proven something, but not that. They have not proven the statement we came here to debate. That's a huge problem, because that's what we agreed to debate. So that's topicality. It doesn't make it on the map because it's a procedural. Procedurals are the idea that what's the format? Rules. We agreed to this format and process. You will have 8-minute speeches followed by 3-minute cross-examinations, as will I. We'll have 5 minutes of prep time each, and the topic is this. So topicality doesn't make it on the map. All the others do. Let's talk about the words we use to describe. And I'm going to give you debate lingo and normal lingo. You're going to give it to me, actually. So starting with the cause of things that are now. What do we usually call it? Debate. What? Harm? What were you saying?
I said status quo.
Yeah, status quo. The status quo. The way things are is the cause of effects in the status quo. Causality is the expression of movement from the status quo to some effect. So the status quo is a policy. We have this policy. We allow, this is our labeling requirement on food today. That's the status quo. That unfortunately leads to some bad things. What are some other words than status quo that we can use here, though? Normal words.
The present.
Present. More?
Everyday life.
Let me tell you 3 things about everyday life. Let's get things to themes. We often like to discuss the status quo in terms of facts. Here are some facts. Even policies. Or laws. In the United States, it's a law that fish are inspected and they are tested for their mercury content. And the acceptable average is 1 part per million, I think. I forget. There's a measured standard that the FDA applies using their little inspection kits. That's the law. Do you think it's easier for a judge to understand what the law is or what the status quo is? Yep. Then the expression of moving from the status quo to some effect. Anybody know the debate word for it? Harms are actually going to be in the effect box, which we're going to retitle here in a second.
The link.
I love that you said that, because what we're about to discover is that for a bizarre reason, we learn language on AF and another set of language on neg for the same thing. So most people learn link as a negative position, and they learn link as the affirmative side. You're dead on right.
What's going on what I've heard people mention get causality?
Ooh, you're so close. That's an English word. That's normal. So that's a normal speak. So you're right. Debaters is the word inherency. Complete goober of a word. That no one knows what it means. You still probably, I say inherency, and you probably go, oh yeah. How many of you know the 3 parts of inherency? 3 types of inherency. Which is funny because inherency is useless to you unless you know the 3 types. I'll teach you the 3 types of inherency, and then we'll give ourselves some normal speak. Aside, 3 types of inherency. And now, translate the word in your mind over here to causality. 3 types of inherency / causality. 1, attitude. Things get to be the way they are, good or bad, because of people's attitudes. For example, prejudice towards GMOs. Did you know? Anybody here know someone diabetic? What do you think insulin's made from? It's the first GMO. Does that change your perspective on GMOs slightly? Probably prejudiced against it, but maybe not so much about everything. That would be attitude 1, because it has to do with how we think about it. How politicians think about it. In foreign policy topics, how China thinks about the United States and vice versa. It's how people are wired. Politicians are greedy, little, self-serving. Okay. Attitudinal, structural. That means that someone actually designed it to be this way. So, laws are all structural. The tax on cigarettes is this. It's a structure. Someone set it up. It's planned, it's designed. That, I don't know what else is illegal in agriculture, but I do know it is illegal to import lobsters in the wrong kind of box. And there are people with a felony who can't vote because of that. That's structural. That the law exists. That there's this agency and this department. Oh yeah, here's a good one. That the USDA and FDA aren't the same department, but have overlapping authority. For example, the egg shell is under one, and the egg contents are under the other, and poor farmers have to figure out which is which and get them inspected and tested and neglected, rejected, whatever. That's structural. Do you guys understand structural a little bit? It's the way it's built. Third, Roe v. Wade is a bad structure. Existential. This is the concept of inertia. How things just got to be that way. Nobody planned it. Nobody really even cared enough about it. It just got to be that way. So, some existential things about policy. Usually counterintuitive. But a good example would be, why do we do more trade with China than with other countries? Well, there's a structural cause, which is that we have a whole lot of trade agreements that allow that to flow. But there's an existential cause. They tended to specialize more in manufacturing, and we tended to specialize more in innovation. And the costs of each of those are far more efficient in the relative different countries. They don't do a very good job of that. That's existential. So an economic principle at work, supply and demand at work, that would be existential cost. Yeah, free market caused it. Would be an existential cost. That feels really boring, doesn't it? I'm going to teach you how to turn that into debate winning arguments in a little bit, because how many of you have ever won a round on inerrancy? Just curious, as an It's pretty rare, isn't it?
I won it on existential. So
Tell us about it.
It was one round. It was military year. The team was implementing a plan, and I said basically the system has already gone here. It's already implementing itself, and the policies you're enacting is going to happen the same way through the free market.
A couple times you strike lucky, and they are recommending a plan that's already there or about to be there, right? How, against well-researched, was that an advanced opponent?
That was my first year debating, and I was a 3-year debater.
Wow, oh, that's sad. Poor guys. Let me say it this way, don't plan to win on inherencies. You every once in a while luck out, and they're passing something that is already policy. Usually, they're passing something that's similar to policy, and then they're going to tell you why theirs is actually better. But we can turn all of these into really cool offense. I'll teach that to you after we finish the argument. Okay, so inherency, causality, let me give you some other words. Trends, drivers, facts appear again, facts, attitudes, innovations, vignettes. Okay, that's not a good word. There are 3 innovations going on right now. There are 3 trends that contribute to a huge problem that we have in our food safety today. There are 4 drivers of public health, public obesity today. There are 2 primary causes of. So we name a number of these, but it's far better to say a word like cause, trend, driver, than to say, I have 3 inherency points. Because nobody knows what that means. We say, there are 3 trends. Do you see the difference? It demonstrates we actually understand inherency, by the way. On from there, harms. Harms are the result of inherencies, causes. So, that there are trends are not necessarily bad. In fact, let's take babies die, okay? The amount of babies dying is a fact. The analysis that is bad, even though it seems like the same thing, we have to separate in our minds. We are being critical thinkers here, and we recognize that the deaths happening is one thing to be analyzed. What we think about that is another. And this is how you debate. Because when someone, you shouldn't say that it's good that babies die. It's awful. But you can question the facts about why. And that's where debaters learn to use perspicuity, use to define their arguments. So we need to be able to divide these 2. Facts from as causes from the results. This is the spin zone effect. That's the spin zone. This is the dry boarding zone. We do not want to have debates in the dry boarding zone. We want to have debates in the spin zone. Analyzing facts. Not, you're wrong about that. You're wrong about that. That debate is frustrating as all get out, and usually it doesn't go anywhere. That's not the year it happened. It happened in this other year. This was the president who was president then. But it still happened. Okay, let's move on. Effects. You used the word harm, and we've already decided today that harm is a bad word. What are some better words?
Problem.
Problem. Good word. More words. Problems. There are 2 problems.
Issues.
They're issues. Good, I like it. I have a couple issues with that. Issue 1.
Obstacles.
Obstacles. Obstacles go here. Interestingly enough, it's not necessarily bad. What's trying to get past the obstacle, not getting past the obstacle, is bad. That the obstacle prevents the good thing from happening is just a thing. It's a fact. We call obstacles and barriers or appearance arguments. Over here, issues. Listen to me. Disadvantages. What would happen if in your next app case you said, there are 2 disadvantages? What would happen? What would Meg do? They'd what?
Probably be confused.
Why?
Because they're the ones who do the disadvantages.
Right. Because from debate in a book somewhere, disadvantages are something that the negative team runs. Why can't the status quo have a disadvantage? In normal speak, of course the status quo has disadvantages. What we're doing right now has some disadvantages to it. Let me tell you the first disadvantage of what we're doing right now. Our current food labeling policy has 2 significant downsides. Disadvantage 1 and disadvantage 2. And all of you who learned, but you knew what the word disadvantage was before you knew it in a debate context, but it sounds weird to me saying it on AF because of your debate context. Which is exactly why I would say it on AF. Because to the general audience, that something we're doing right now might be disadvantageous is simple. That is very straightforward. Other words that we use here are advantages, pros and cons. Pretty regular speak word to use. Let's look at the pros and cons. There are 2 cons of what we're doing today. And any synonym of these. What is the name of this issue in stock issue? Significance. Significance, if we need another aside here, I'll put it up here. Significance is the total of y. Is our spin. It leads to a plus minus conclusion. It's analysis. This is a dry-going fact. Significance makes it come alive. The fact matters. Here's why it matters. That's significance. We're giving it significance. Again, hear me using English. We are giving the facts significance. Not debatees. It really is a thing. So significance is everything. For and against what we're doing today. And you end up with either on net it's good or on net it's bad. Considering everything. Woo! The future status quo. What do we call it?
Is that in reference to the advantages of the plan?
One of those. It's a plan. I'm trying to get you guys to understand the actual substance of it. What is a plan if not a new status quo? Isn't the status quo the current plan? Yes, yes it is. So the plan that AF proposes is a new quo. And if you want to be a goober on neg, don't do this, but because I don't like the word, you could have 2 harms against their plan. But you only have harms against the status quo. Well, this is the new one. Everybody who's new to debate is like, what is he talking about? This bears no relevance to me, and you're right. Everybody who's done debate for a little bit, you're like, whoa! That means I could probably then use the word link to describe inherency, and vice versa. You can have brinks on AF. Oh! You can have inherency on neg, and you're absolutely right. It's the same thing. A cause leads to... Yes?
Well, I was just going to ask you, so when you ask your judges if they judged before, their experience, because you probably would change your argument.
Yeah. So when we're asking our judges things, what's your judging philosophy, is a terrible, intimidating, ridiculous question. Asking, what what's your profession and background in debate? Is the perfect question. You will get to figure out who they are. I'm an engineer. Aha. You are a literalist. I'm an entrepreneur. You like the future and possibility. And then, yes, I believe those are opposites. I'm just kidding. And then, this is my first debate round. Sweet. I will use English.
That's what I was wondering, how do you get to the question to ask if they're like a parent that has judged?
Yep.
You
Your
just ask-
experience in debate. So I want to know their profession or something like that. What I should say. Yeah. What is your experience in debate? And what is your background or occupation? It's a really easy way for someone to say he's not confident in being a homemaker, even though they should be, and to say, you don't want to just be like, what's your job? Because some people will not be confident in their answer of that. You never want to put your audience in an uncomfortable position. So you say, what's your experience or background? But that's one from an occupation standpoint. So I would say your occupation or background. What's your background and occupation and any experience with debate? That is such a less pressuring question than what's your judging philosophy? By the way, you guys know that there was a book that had a list of judging philosophies in it that nobody reads anymore? But it used to, because it was by the founder of the league that was the founder of your league. And so there used to be a time where you could walk into a round and say, what is your judging philosophy? And get an answer like, I'm a tabula rasa judge. Because they chose from a list. That's where that question came from. Yes?
When they ask that question.
Right before the round. So usually the judge is sitting there, and you're about to speak, and usually it's kind of up to the affirmative speaker. I have like whiteboard dust on my nose. That's why it's not because I'm not confident. My nose itches. So you come up to the round, and usually you're like, but before the round begins, would you mind just saying a little bit about what's your background and occupation and experience with debate? And then they say or they don't say. But especially on a panel too, it's really about what's your judging philosophy? And then they're thinking about what are the other judges thinking about? That is exactly what's going through every judge's mind. Panic.
I'm sorry, one question. So if you had 3 judges, and say 2 of them had a lot of experience, 1 had none, how would you hear it? So 2 had a lot of debate experience, and 1 did not have any.
Now, what I want to do is consider the 3 trends going on right now or inherency issues. Trend 1. The judge who has no clue what inherency means was not bothered by the or inherency issues that just kind of blipped in and out. The 2 judges who cared about debate heard their buzzword. So you speak both. Don't let the inherency be your primary points. Let it be the or this, or this, or this. And so 2 links here, you might consider them structural inherency. Link 1, link 2. Instead of I have 5 significance issues, I don't think those problems are as substantial as my opponent's argument. You could call this significance. The first is, it flows just fine. You're going to ask a question?
Yeah, what's the specific book?
What? Oh, Argumentation and Debate by Christian. Introduction to Argumentation and Debate. It's black. It's by Whoa! It's based on Austin Freely's Argumentation and Debate for the college text. Yeah, so my mom, back in the day when this book ran supreme, she would say, I am a stock issues judge. That was her answer to the judging philosophy question, which is one of the correct answers.
So I had a thought, would it make sense to, instead of saying plan, say my proposition, or would that just be completely out?
I love it. Absolutely. Say my proposal, my proposition, my bill. I propose the following. And don't say mandates. I propose the following. The United States federal government should repeal the Food and Safety Act of 1993. Is that normal English? Yeah. If the other debater is like, where was the mandate? Where was the mandate? To me, that is just simply an expression of you have no idea what you're doing. Unfortunately, unfortunately, you were taught debate in a way that closed your mind rather than opened it. Because you're not able to listen to what a mandate actually is, which is what the proposal is. And analyze that, oh yeah, that's what the proposal is. And you do things like this. Is that a comparative advantage case or a harms case? Who cares? Put your plan here, put your plan there. Doesn't matter. Why do people have to debate in a box? If you went to listen to, does a pastor have to give the same exact organization of sermon every time? No. Do you freak out over that? No. You just listen to it. And I think we teach debaters to not listen sometimes by overemphasizing the structures. Structures are aids, guides. The new plan, adding a new squad, the plan, the bill. Plan's a pretty straightforward word, so I don't spend a lot of time on alternatives to it. The expression of the plan leading to results, debate a word for it. Yup, solvency. Are you telling me that solvency and inherency are basically the same thing? Yes, I am. They're the same thing. Here's the deal, though. How do you mandate existential action? Can't. How do you mandate people change their minds? Can't. The only exception to that is when people are like, yeah, I mandate the repeal of this Supreme Court case, where I'm just like, that doesn't mean anything, because a Supreme Court case is actually the result of 9 people believing the Constitution says something. You can't be like, the Supreme Court doesn't believe that anymore. That doesn't make any sense. Plans are structural in nature. Always. Your plan is not to change a mind or to change inertia. Your plan is to create, to design. So your plan is always some form of structural inherency, a new structural cause. The law shall be this. We shall strike this law. We shall amend this law. We shall change this law. That's why policy solvency is one-dimensional. But now check this out. For neg, these two still apply. Your plan won't work because of people's attitudes about it. Your plan won't work because of what happened last time you tried it. So while the plan itself is structural, solvency issues are attitudinal, structural, and existential. Did this suddenly become a little more relevant and less boring? It gets better. Disadvantages. The problem with their case is what the new structure will cause in other people's attitudes about it. Farmer revolt. Broken alliance. They're mad. These become links to disadvantages. So another word for solvency is link. Solvency link. Another word for inherency is link. Solution is pretty clear though. Solution is not that bad of a word. This works. It's not that bad of a word. Workability, not that bad of a word. So the debate words that are already used here, I think are relatively straightforward. The only problem is that solvency is a financial term. Insolvency, ever heard of that? And so you are speaking a normal word, but to some people it has a different meaning. Oh well, it's pretty much clear now. Now we get here. What are the words for the effects of a plan? How do we describe it?
Advantage.
Advantage and disadvantage. And say it.
Impact?
Give it impacts. That's a good word. And
Results.
both.
Significance.
this line don't exist. It's the same words. I have 3 issues with their plan. There are pros and cons to their plan. There are harms to their plan. There are problems with their plan. Here are the problems. Their plan creates new problems. Here they are. Is there anything illogical about using the same words? No, there's not. Because this is actually how a judge judges too, or should. A judge ought to consider the total amount of pros and cons before and weigh them against the total amounts of pros and cons after. Before and after. That's a normal framework. You go into a business meeting. I propose this new product line. Here's the problem with the one we've got. Here's how this one is better. Very normal. Super normal. You decide, based on comparing the problems, actually the current product we have isn't that bad, versus the solution. This one has some unintended consequences that could result. That's a standard conversation. Significance is weighing all the pros and cons before and after against each other. So disadvantages are not their own stock issue. Because disadvantages, first of all, are not only neg, and second of all, are not only post-plan, they're pre-plan, and third of all, should be weighed with advantages. That's how you decide. So they all go together. So when somebody says net benefits, this is what they're referring to. The net, is it beneficial or harmful? Of all. Any questions so far? So you see where all the stock issues live? Now we get to make some fun observations about the map. Those who are new, again, this has no bearing on your prior life and existence. But to everybody else it does. Where do you put a counter plan? By the way, when I teach debate camps, like full 5 days ones, novices learn counter plans. Day 1. That's just a normal thing. Because what is more normal than when somebody says, I think we should do this, you say, I think we should do that. That is a pretty normal statement to make. We'll treat counterplans like they're, oh my goodness, complicated. If you're neg, and the af is the new status quo, do you have a plan?
It goes the same place where the affirmative case stands, because it's going to be a new
Alternative.
Yeah.
It's an alternative feature.
Yeah.
A counter plan is just another plan that also leads to the same things. Now let's make some observations. When you don't run this as neg, you don't say, we should do this other thing instead. Do you have a plan? Yeah, all the LVers get it. Yeah, you have a plan. Your plan is the status quo, right? Is the status quo a course of action? Is that the definition of policy? You have a plan. Is this plan contrary to that plan?
It should be.
Again, all the LDers get it. What's a synonym for contrary? That we just used a minute ago. Counter. Whoops. If you're neg, you're always running a counter plan. You're saying don't do their plan, do the one we have already. You are never not running a counter plan. So for people to treat counter plans like they're complex is to misunderstand the nature of policy debate. You always have a counter plan. And it strengthens your position to recognize this because you will stop whining about their case all the time and recognize that the judge should vote for something, not just against something. It feels much better. Instead of just, yeah, my opponent provided this case and I complain about their logic and their fallacies and their facts and their figures the end. You say, and guess what? What we're doing today doesn't have any of those problems. It takes you an extra 15 seconds to make us feel good about what we've got. So that we vote for that, not just against that. You always have a counter plan. Always, always, always. Yes?
But doesn't have a counter plan have to be non-resolutional?
Why?
If I were half, or yeah, if I were half, I'd say, well, you're voting not for one team or the other, you're voting for affirmative resolution or against it, and they just basically give you have two affirmative plans, so you have no choice but to vote affirmative.
So let's go back to what's the resolution? Does the resolution require change or not? I love this question, by the way. Does the resolution require change or not?
It's a policy resolution, so yeah.
So yes.
Yes.
Does sticking with the counter plan of the status quo require a change or not? Therefore, this counter plan is not affirming the resolution because you're not affirming the change part. You do have a policy and an approach, but it's the current plan. So you're not affirming a change or affirming a non-change. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that counter plan doesn't have this flaw.
So if I were as a present a counter plan as a nay, do I have to do something that does not affirm the resolution? If I'm taking an action, I have to make sure that I do something that violates the resolution.
That is the safest place to be. So if you're going to take a new counter plan, the safest place is to make sure you don't change agriculture and food safety policy.
Yeah.
Because nobody's going to question you then. If you do change agriculture and food safety policy, it is a very open debate in debate circles about whether that's okay or not. And there are two basic perspectives. So everybody else in the room who's not necessarily tracking yet, here's the plan. The plan is to ban GMOs. Neg says, wait a second. While I agree with the harm significance that there are several problematic GMOs, there's also this disadvantage that several GMOs are really good. Therefore, counter plan, ban the bad ones. Okay, whatever that list is. Ban the bad ones. What this gentleman is articulating is that, well, I might come back and say, you just banned a bunch of GMOs. That is changing our food and agriculture policy, which is the resolution. So now there are two affirmative teams in the room. There are two ways to look at it. Way one is that's kind of a rules technicality violation, and we shouldn't allow it. Way two is, in the real world, that's exactly what would happen to you. And so, as an audience, you have to kind of choose the real world or the debate world. Now, there's some creative things debaters have done to get around this, called parametrics. I think it's a little silly, but you'll all understand. Parametrics just comes from the word perimeter, parameters. Here's the resolution. All food and agriculture policy changes that are theoretically possible, every single one of them. We're going to ban cows. I don't know. Like everything. Okay? Lots and lots of plans are possible. Lots of them. Wow, it feels like the universe. Okay, AF chose one. They said we're going to ban GMOs. By so doing, they collapse the universe. And the new parameters of the resolution is their case. So for me to say, ban some GMOs, well, before the round started, would have affirmed the topic, at this point in the round succeeds at my negative duty of negating the F. It's complicated to explain. But this is an approach I want you all to understand, because people really don't get this. They think that you're saying topical counterplans are good. You're not. Parametrics approach assumes topical counterplans are bad. They're saying this banning some is no longer topical. Do you see that? Topical counterplans are bad. Mine isn't one anymore. That's the statement. And here's how they prove it. They'll say, because I can't run a disadvantage against theoretical case, ban cows, ban milk, ban this, which If the affirmative says they don't have to defend every change, then how comes I can't affirm one other one? If the affirmative is going to shrink the ground of the resolution to just that, fine. I won't run disadvantages against banning cows. But I do get to run this counter thing. That's the parametrics line of thinking. The second line of thinking is this. If you went to Harvard, or Congress, or your dinner table, and one person said, I think we should ban GMOs, would it be reasonable and expected for the other person to say, I think we should only ban some? And the answer is yes. And then somebody comes back and says, well, that doesn't seem quite right. And then you come back and say, look, I'm advocating something they could have chosen. And the affirmative team is going to come back, and instead of defending the plan that they chose, they're going to attack me for also affirming the resolution. Seems to abandon their own plan. So maybe there are 2 F's in the room, but that would also mean there are 2 negs in the room. Because they're abandoning their case. If their case is a bad idea, vote against it. And that's my only job as neg. That's the other approach that we can take. Now, everybody needs to hear me out. I have had teams win both approaches in out-rounds at nationals in your leagues. I have had teams lose both approaches in out-rounds at nationals in your league. There is a default opinion most parent judges have on this issue. And you usually can't say a thing in a debate round to change it. So if you have a parent judge, they already have an opinion about topical counter plans, and you are going to auto-lose by running one. Some percentage of the time. I will now take your questions. Yes?
So I was thinking about it, in the rules, I don't know if it's for all formal debate, but I know at least for LD, it's a different system with the neg, it's only required to either refute the res or the abs.
It says that for policy also.
Okay, so that, okay.
Yeah.
Because then that would make perfect sense, because in the rules, it does deliberately say, and sorry, I guess I hadn't thought of it that same way, because it does, they're narrating, if they don't have to defend everything, then you can't refute everything, so why not choose one and say this one should be better, because they're, as the regs, they're choosing their way, and I'm going a different way.
That's
So
correct.
you're not going against the regs, you're going against their case then, correct?
Exactly. You're going against their case. So you're doing a great job of the functional impacts from way earlier today. The function of my counter plan is not to negate the resolution. The function of my counter plan is to negate their case, which was their affirmation of the resolution. And as long as I have defeated the affirmative's affirmation of the resolution, affirmative can't win. Even if they think that you should somehow vote for the worst team, which is what they're actually saying to you right now. That doesn't make any sense. But in propositional logic, neg shouldn't be able to do this. So I think the case is really strong on both sides. This is a tough issue. In propositional logic, neg should not be able to do this. They affirmed the resolution too. But what is the judge signing after neg for? And now you get into this debate. And I'm going way too deep for some of you. Does the judge vote for who did the better debating, which is what some ballots say? Or does the judge vote for the resolution? Because if they vote for the resolution, then it would seem that a topical counter plan makes neg lose. But if they're voting for who does the better debating, then the topical counter plan may half lose. So this is why it's controversial in debate circles, is because people are like, well, what is the purpose of debate? And so this is a purpose of debate question. Good news is, if you don't have a parent judge, this one's easy. It's just a non-issue. What should you do if you're AF and somebody runs a topical counter plan against you?
Show that either there's no reason to do their case instead of your case, or if they gave a reason, then show why their reason is wrong.
Yeah, just stick with your case. Did you choose your own case? Did you research it? Do you like it? Just use it. CMOs don't have the research fully completed on them. And my opponents have given you a list of both. It's too convoluted right now. I'm okay with GMOs going back to the lab again. Come back when you're done. Don't default on with our food supply. Default off. Just defend your case. Much better way of debating. Not looking for rules violations, but looking to challenge yourself to choose a case and defend it. Still worth acquiring. Because if you're in a business meeting or a Congress meeting, you're not going to get to say, hey, what you just said changes my original plan a little bit and is better, so we shouldn't do it. That doesn't make any sense. Hello, dinner. Okay, so I have we'll just make 2 more observations about the picture and then we'll be done with it. You have now learned the unified theory of debate. Presumption. Who knows what that word means? Yeah? He's exactly right.
It's when you assume something to be the case. It's when you assume something to be the case.
You assume something to be the case. There is a debaterland word for presumption in policy. Does anybody know it? Nope. So it's the idea that if nobody speaks, negative wins. In policy. If nobody speaks, negative wins. It's the assumption, the presumption, the presupposition that it is safer to stick with what we know than to do something we don't know. So all things being equal, stay the status quo. That's what it means. So presumption, but that's logical, it's not a rule. Presumption is a concept that knowing our own problems is better than risking new ones we haven't thought of, unintended consequences. So that's a debate theory word that jumps out at us. Oh, I have my last one. I was going to apply these again. So we've done the job of applying these to solvency and said, wait a second, attitude, structures, and existential, these arguments contribute to solvency. Well, they also contribute to disadvantage. And the real problem is attitudinal, but people are mean. No structure can fix that. And sometimes it creates a disadvantage of masking the problem and causing the meanness to foment to get worse. It's a generic disadvantage called a masking disadvantage. And so all that to say, instead of making these arguments here, what I recommend is moving them down here as your objection to a plan. So we want to memorize this list, attitudinal, structural, and existential, and use them as subparts of our disadvantages. And then we turn mitigation into offense. Disadvantages when debate rounds. Good stuff.